Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellowah Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. I want to talk today about the lost populations of people who may think that they are not the point, or that they're being marginalized or sidelined. And the first example I'm going to talk about is the person whose partner goes woo. For example, you've been married, happily married for years, and suddenly your partner discovers energy healing. And they start having a few treatments, and they say they like it. And they seem to be a bit lighter in themselves. They seem to be benefiting from it. It's all good. And then one day they go away for a weekend workshop. And they come back, and they're now being a little bit more bubbly and expressive than usual, perhaps. They're perhaps telling you that you should go and do the workshop. You start to get a sinking feeling within you. They then decide they're going to start giving these treatments to other people. And before you know it, they've left their job. Or if they weren't working, before you know it, they've hired someone to come and help look after the children while they spend their time doing these treatments. And before long, they go off and do a teacher training, and then suddenly they're running these workshops as well. And then before you know it, they are running them in different parts of the country, which means they're away for extended periods of time. And suddenly your world comes crashing down. Suddenly you realize that you are no longer the center of this person's world. Or you might be, but their behavior has changed significantly. You feel uncomfortable. You notice yourself snapping at this person sometimes. Someone I know in this situation, a man, found himself saying to his partner, "The trouble is when you people start messing about with spirit, things very quickly get out of hand." And he wondered why he'd said that and what was wrong with him for doing that, why he was snapping. What was this person doing that was so terrible? And he realized that something was changing in his life that he had no control over, that was nothing to do with him. And it was affecting his everyday life. And it was starting to affect his feeling of self-worth. It was affecting his sense of whether or not he was loved, whether or not he was considered. He began to feel marginalized, as if he was a mere accessory in the life of his wife. So very often when we listen to podcasts, or when we record podcasts for that matter, we're talking about the person who has made the discovery, the person who's had the breakthrough, the person who's awakened. But do we consider the other people in that person's life? Do we consider the impact on them when we suddenly decide to pivot and center our lives about something else? But actually, that's never what we're really doing. We're not really centering our lives around something else. What we're actually doing is following something that we feel called to follow because we believe that that will help us make the biggest contribution. So we haven't stopped loving our partner. We haven't stopped loving our children or our grandchildren. We haven't stopped wanting to be responsible or caring. But we have discovered something that touches us in the heart and that calls us. But what about the widows and the widowers of the partners who've gone woo? And this can happen in all sorts of fields. Somebody takes up golf. Somebody joins a club where they're learning to fly planes, and suddenly they're meeting up with all sorts of people. Somebody joins the Aston Martin Owners Club. Somebody starts taking on something in their life that really fulfills something for them. And the person they've, in quotes, left behind feels a negative impact. Now, that negative impact is usually something to do with fear, fear of losing that person, fear of losing comfort, fear of losing predictability, but we don't think about those people. And I think this is something in life to really consider, if we're feeling marginalized, if we're feeling like we've been left behind, that's actually an illusion. We haven't actually been marginalized. We haven't been left behind because we are still the center of our own lives as individuals. I'm talking about. I'm not talking about our relationship with the all and being part of everything. I'm talking about the aspect of us, which is an individual self. That individual self is still intact, and that individual self still has its choices. But the sense of insecurity and safety comes when we start to believe that individual self, that the identity, the existence, the validity depends upon somebody else and what they do and how they behave and how they spend their time. And that is an illusion, and that's a self-disempowerment. So if someone listening to this is in that place where somebody seems to be suddenly orbiting around something other than them, something that's calling them, that you don't understand what it is or why they're doing it, maybe rather than being so concerned about what they're doing, look at, why do you feel negatively affected by that? If you feel threatened, why do you feel threatened? What's that about? How can you look within and strengthen the center of you, which says, what's my life about? What am I called to do? Are we perhaps feeling insecure because we're not connected with what our life is about and what we feel called to do? Because if that's the case, then that is the next journey, to explore that and find out what that is. Now, it could be that we go and try out the thing that our partner has embarked on and give it a go, give it a try. And that, generally speaking, is a very sensible thing to do. And the reason it's a very sensible thing to do is because of the path of least resistance, and also because of the principle of persistence. So from a path of least resistance point of view, it's a relatively easy thing to do. They've got all the logistical details. They know where everything happens. They know how much it costs. They can pre-brief you on how to get the most out of it. It's relatively easy to go and do it. And because they survived it, you will probably survive it. You'll be absolutely fine. The principle of persistence is that if you go and do it and it's not for you, you do not have to do it anymore. And in fact, that aspect of you which knows what you need and what you don't need will permit you to go and explore and experiment, but will not permit you to keep doing it if it's not right for you. And in fact, if you have gone and tried out whatever it is, the workshop, the treatment, the retreat, the experience, whatever it is, that then makes it a much easier conversation with your partner. Because you can then say from an informed place, I've experienced this thing you're doing. I got this out of it. I'm grateful for that. And that's all I need. And you may even find that by going and doing the thing your partner's doing, that you get some insight into what you should be doing or want to be doing. So you can then say to them, look, I've done your, in my case, Pellowah workshop, let's say, or I've done your couples retreat, or I've done your ayahuasca retreat, or whatever it might be. I got this out of it. But also while doing it, I learned, A, I don't want to do it again. And B, what I do want to do is this. Now that's an easier thing for your partner to hear and understand than if you're simply saying, no, I'm not even going to try it. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to go and try what they're doing. You can just as easily say to yourself, right, they've found something, let me find something. If we go back to the other reason that people are sometimes discomforted by these situations, which is a fear that you're going to lose your partner to someone they're going to meet in that new community. The reality is that if you don't embrace what they're doing, at least to the point where you're supporting them in doing it and empathizing with them doing it, if you don't do that, there is a genuine risk that you will lose them. Because you are withdrawing love and support from them when you do that. And that's dangerous. And that's nothing to do with the nature of the thing that they're doing. That is to do with the nature of relationship. Relationships are a bit like traveling on the motorway in the sense that sometimes we're in the fast lane, speeding past everybody else, and sometimes we're in the slow lane, taking it easy, and sometimes we're cruising along in the middle lane. And very often, we and our partners are in two separate vehicles. So you may be following each other along in the slow lane or in the middle lane or the fast lane, or you might be in the slow lane and they might zip out to the fast lane. If you do not follow them out there, or at least get into the middle lane and start exploring what you might want to do, you do have a chance of losing them because they'll zip off into the distance. But if you stay in contact with them, encourage them, tell them that you completely appreciate that they're making their own choices and that's what works for them and you trust them, they're more likely to pull off and wait for you at the next services. So you can regroup and identify where you both are and what works for both of you. So that there are two things going on, really. One is the whole question, what do I want to do with my life? What do I feel called to do? What inspires me? What touches my heart? And the other is, how do I relate with somebody when we're traveling at different speeds or when it seems like we're traveling in different directions? Do I still prioritize the love, the support, the kindness, the encouragement, the empathy? Or do I become somebody who is irascible, irritable, defensive, and unhappy? Which could apply to both parties. It can apply to the person who's discovered something wonderful and is saying, my partner won't come and try it. My partner is not awakened. My partner is closed. My partner is not evolved. None of those comments are coming from a place of love. Or the partner who has not found the thing saying about the person who has, they are inconsiderate, they're not loyal, they're not fulfilling their original promise in the relationship, they've gone a bit mad. What's going on? So both of those positions are not coming from love. Coming from love means having empathy for the other person, following what feels right for our own heart, and to still love the other person and encourage them and support them. And this applies in all sorts of other areas of life, where two people, whether it's close friends, whether it's siblings, this happens in families as well, whether it's couples, whatever it might be, colleagues, where one person starts taking an interest in something new, there's a whole challenge around how does the other person respond to that? So let's have some empathy for ourselves, whether we are the person heading off into the fast lane, whether we are the person who's been left behind in the slow lane. And remember, no one is leaving anyone else. No one's being left behind. We're each just following our own path. How we choose to relate to one another is a separate but connected matter. And the way through is always based on coming from love. It's never based on coming from, I'm right and you're wrong. You're wrong, I'm right. About what we should be doing, who should be doing what, and why. So I hope this conversation today has been of interest to you, whether or not you are somebody who is in one of these situations having difficulties, whether you're someone who actually transcended these difficulties and learned from it and now has a much stronger relationship or partnership or family relationship or colleague relationship. And so that's all for Truth and Transcendence for today. You can find our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, and share with your friends. And comment on what we were discussing today. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.